Welcome to The Insider, the official podcast for the City of Murfreesboro. I'm Mike Browning. Our guests for this podcast are with the Federal Emergency Management Agency, FEMA, and with the SBA. Kim Keblish is a media relations specialist for FEMA, and Yabsira Adera is with the Small Business Administration in the local offices here in Tennessee. Good to have both of you with us.
Thank you for having us.
So the reason why we're here is because Middle Tennessee experienced some storms this spring that produced up to 70-mile-an-hour winds and some tornadoes in Rutherford County. There was property damage, including the destruction of the historic mill, the Readyville Mill, and many area homes. And this is the kind of thing that we have come to expect in the South, in places like Tennessee, in the Deep South, and even in the Plains. But the important thing for us and why we're here to talk to both of you is that when these kind of things happen, the government is there to help respond and to help people in need with loans and grants. So how can residents who are affected by these storms in Rockville and in the Readyville area, which is partly Cannon County, partly Rutherford County, how do they apply for assistance?
Yeah, so for the case of for FEMA, homeowners and renters with underinsured or uninsured disaster-related damage from the March 31st to April 1st tornadoes and severe weather may apply for FEMA assistance. This also includes, the folks in the 10 declared counties, which that's Macon, Cannon, Rutherford, Haywood, Hardman, Lewis, Tipton, McNary, and Wayne. And these folks can apply for FEMA assistance by going online. That's the fastest way, to disasterassistance.gov. They can also download the FEMA app, and that's a really nice option because you can take pictures of any supplemental documentation that FEMA asks of you and upload them to your application very seamlessly. And you can also call the FEMA helpline at 800-621-3362. And some types of assistance that FEMA may provide include temporary lodging reimbursement. For instance, if someone had to evacuate their home because it was unsafe to live in, FEMA may reimburse that. We may also provide rental assistance for folks that had to leave their home because of there's damage or is unsafe to live in, and they're now living in another house or an apartment. We may also provide basic repairs and home replacement and coverage for other disaster-related expenses like vehicle repair and replacement, childcare costs, medical and dental expenses, and moving and storage as well.
These storms happened, of course, as we said, at the end of March and early April. What's the deadline for applying?
It's less than a month away. It's June 6th is the deadline.
What should someone who is applying and then going through this process think about or look for, I guess in two ways. One, if they're going online and doing it, or if they decide, they're more comfortable calling someone, what kind of questions or information are they going to be seeking?
So folks should provide a social security number. Will be asked to provide a social security number. They'll be asked to provide best contact information. So a reliable phone number is very important to put down because FEMA will call that number to ask you questions about your application or ask for any additional information that FEMA needs. We may ask, or you can provide your email if you'd like, if you want to receive communications that way. We'll ask for your address, your current address, and the address of your damaged house if it's different. And those are some of the basic informations that people need to provide.
Many, if not most, homeowners now have insurance that covers damage to their home in the event of a disaster like this, but then some don't. But what is the difference between what FEMA provides and what insurance provides?
So insurance and FEMA assistance really work hand in hand. FEMA does not. We encourage folks to apply or to file that claim for insurance as soon as possible because FEMA cannot duplicate benefits that are covered by insurance, but FEMA may cover expenses that are not covered by insurance. It depends on what type of policy people have as well, or what type of assistance they're given in their insurance. But I know for some folks, rental assistance is something that FEMA provides that maybe insurance might not provide, for instance.
I know one of the concerns that people might have is that let's say they have insurance, but they're also applying for FEMA, and they're waiting for some acknowledgement or information on what's covered. And let's say they haven't heard from their insurance company yet, or they haven't heard from FEMA yet. They may wonder, how that process is going to work. But once you file, there's going to be some discussion or determination made for both of those, correct?
So right after you apply, FEMA may ask for additional documentation. We may ask for proof of homeownership or proof of occupancy or proof of identity, proof of insurance settlement, or a description of insurance coverage and benefits. And it's really important that those folks submit that documentation because it helps FEMA, make an accurate determination on their case and verify they are who they are and this was their damaged house. And folks can upload those documents to their disasterassistance.gov profile. Folks may also receive a call from a home inspector, FEMA home inspector, and that you can expect a call within about 14 days or so of applying for assistance. And that number may come from an out-of-state or an unknown number. But it's so important to pick up that call because to get in touch with that home inspector to schedule that appointment, because that helps FEMA make their determination and it helps us verify the damage to the home. And the day of the inspector coming to your home, they'll be wearing an official FEMA photo ID badge, and that's the best and only way to identify FEMA personnel as official personnel. And that inspector will make an assessment of the home and determine what it will take to make the damaged home safe and habitable and functional for people to live in. And then, after the home inspection, if people are asked to have a home inspection, and after submitting that documentation, folks will receive a determination letter in the mail or by email. And I encourage folks to read that determination letter very carefully because it will detail the amount and the type of assistance that they will receive from FEMA. And some folks may be found ineligible for assistance, but usually there's an easy fix, and some common reasons for ineligibility include, that missing documentation or that missing home inspection. And the folks that are found ineligible for assistance or just don't agree with the amount or the type of assistance provided, they have every right to appeal. They have 60 days from the date of the determination letter to submit an appeal to FEMA. And in that appeal, they'll detail they'll sign and date it and put their 9-digit application number on it, and they'll detail why they disagree with the determination and provide reasoning for why it should be otherwise. And they'll also provide supplemental documentation to FEMA. Like, for instance, if someone has discovered there's more damage to their home than anticipated, or that assistance from insurance wasn't enough because there was more damage, they can submit an appeal to FEMA if they've encountered more costs than anticipated for that damage, and they could provide supplemental documentation such as contractor receipts and estimates. But I also want to mention for the folks that are found ineligible just because of a missed home inspection, they can just call the FEMA helpline at 800-621-3362 and get that sorted away. But for everyone else, if they're ineligible for other reasons or they just want to file an appeal, they would have to write out a letter, provide that supplemental documentation, and submit it online to disasterassistance.gov to their profile, or they can mail it as well.
So the message then is not to give up initially. I mean, you may be able to satisfy FEMA with some additional information or to get questions answered with FEMA at that point.
Yes.
What about the issue of fraud? We all know that exists, and how does FEMA address that, and how can people help that are dealing with this process?
Yeah, unfortunately, sometimes after disasters, scam artists and identity thieves want to take advantage of folks that are going through these really tough times. And here are some tips to try to avoid fraud and mitigate fraud or detect fraud. One, please do not trust anyone that is offering services to apply for FEMA assistance. do not trust those people because FEMA personnel do not ask for money in exchange for helping folks with their applications. That's a huge red flag. A second one, do not, move into a rental property that you have not seen in person yet. Do not put money down for a rental property that you haven't seen. Third, that FEMA will not solicit you or cold call you and ask you to apply for assistance. FEMA doesn't have access to your information unless it's given to us, unless you've applied. So don't trust anyone on the phone asking you to apply for assistance. Those folks that think there's fraud or there are suspicious activities going around, they want to report it, they can do so by contacting their local sheriff's department, and they can also call the FEMA fraud helpline, and that number is 1-866-720-5721.
That's the fraud hotline?
Yes, correct.
The idea of rental assistance is something that is provided, let's say someone's home has been damaged to the point where it's uninhabitable. But then they may want to continue that assistance. What's the process for rental assistance?
Yeah, so initial rental assistance normally lasts about 2 months, and that will cover rent and the security deposit. But for folks that are still experiencing financial need and their home is still uninhabitable or is still damaged and they cannot return to it, and for folks that have also been, obviously using the rental money to pay for rent, and they have been demonstrating that they're trying to find a more long-term or permanent housing solution, they are maybe eligible for continued rental assistance. And for the folks that received initial rental assistance, they should have received a form in the mail asking them to fill it out if they need rental assistance beyond the 2 months. But for the folks that haven't received that form yet, they can call the FEMA helpline at 800-621-3362 to request the continued temporary rental assistance form. And they'll just fill that out, and there's some supplemental documentation they need to provide, and they could just submit that through their disasterassistance.gov profile or through postal mail.
I understand that FEMA established recovery centers in some of these locations immediately following the storms. How long do you typically leave those open, and what is the process in determining whether they need to close or not?
I'd say there's no typical amount of time that a disaster recovery center is open because it's on a case-by-case basis. For this disaster, we had 4 fixed disaster recovery centers open, 3 of which are still open right now, but they will close on the 20th. But it's usually based on a couple of factors: how many folks are coming in through the doors, how many people are we assisting or are coming to visit us, and from that point, the state makes a determination or a recommendation on if the disaster recovery center should close or remain open. Up until this point, for the 4 fixed locations at least, there's been about over 650 applicants or prospective applicants that have stopped by the centers.
So we should probably turn now to the Small Business Administration. So we've mainly been talking about homeowners, or people who live in homes and need rental assistance or some kind of loan to get them by. But there are businesses impacted by this as well, right?
Correct. The Small Business Administration provides assistance to small businesses, renters, nonprofit organizations, and also we provide assistance to homeowners. The 3 ways that we provide assistance is there are 3 types of loans. The home physical disaster loan, which is given to homeowners in order to help them repair or replace disaster damaged real estate property. And we have the business physical disaster loan, which is given to businesses to repair or replace replace real estate that's damaged for the business. And then we have the economic injury disaster loan, which is given to businesses as working capital in order to help them meet their necessary financial obligation. So, for example, if a business was still operating during the time period of a storm, but employees weren't able to come into work, we would compensate the business owner for any kind of a net loss in profit or any kind of business interruption that the storm has caused.
You mentioned that you also deal with homeowners and providing assistance to them. So what's the difference between what the SBA does in terms of assistance or providing help and what TEMA does, or FEMA rather?
Right. The SBA provides disaster loan assistance to homeowners. Like I said earlier, we help them repair or replace any kind of disaster damaged real estate. And also we provide an additional assistance to any kind of personal property that homeowners have lost during the time period of the storm. That could be any kind of damages to your furniture, automobile, and any kind of appliances as well.
What else should they know about the assistance we talked about with FEMA, that they have certain ways of applying? Mm-hmm. What about through the SBA?
That's a good question. With the SBA, there's 3 ways that survivors can apply. You can apply online by visiting our website at disasterloanassistance.sba.gov/ELA. You can apply at our business recovery centers, which is only operated by SBA customer service representatives. And you can also apply by calling our toll-free number at 1-800-659-2955, requesting for a paper application, filling out that application, and submitting it by mail.
Is there an eligibility requirement, or what kind of like triggers whether someone's going to receive the assistance or not?
Well, first, the applicant must be in a declared primary or contiguous county. Second, the applicant must have credit that's acceptable to the SBA. And then the applicant also must prove their repayment ability. So we look at your tax return forms and other financial documents to determine if you are able to repay the loans.
So just to clarify that, you're saying that they have to be in a county where some determination has been made that there's eligibility for assistance in that area based on the storms?
Correct.
And then the next level would be whether they're able to receive the actual grants or loans to begin with.
Yeah, it's loans. If they're able to show that they're able to repay those loans, then we make the determination that we can provide assistance to.
So it's almost like a credit worthiness, or what would you describe that as?
I would say it's similar to what you just described it, but it's also important to understand that if they don't qualify with us, that's not where assistance stops. We also refer them to FEMA, where they're eligible for more grant assistance and other opportunities.
What are the benefits of receiving a loan? And when I say that is, some people may say, well, while I could get this funding, I could receive it, it may not be beneficial for me to do that. And when I say that, I mean, sometimes when you take out a loan, you're going to have to pay that back, of course. And does the SBA help people with that kind of advice?
Yeah, there's a lot of benefits when it comes to taking out an SBA loan. We have this program called the 12-month 0% interest deferment, where if you are offered a loan from the SBA for the first year, you don't have to pay it back, and then the interest rate will not start to accrue until after the first year is over. Other benefits include there's no prepayment penalties, and if you're offered a loan, you're not required to accept it.
Okay, so I guess the one final question might be, so what type of interest rate am I going to expect?
For homeowners, the interest rate is as low as 2.375%.
That's about as low as you could get on any kind of loan or home equity right now, right?
Correct. For businesses, it's as low as 4%. And then for private nonprofit organizations, it's as low as 2.375% again.
And how long do those loans usually last? What's the longevity?
Up to 30 years, people have to pay it back. So that's the term limit, 30 years term limit. And another benefit that we have is we provide mitigation assistance, and that's basically an increase in the loans that you receive, up to 20% from the physical disaster loan funds that you receive. And basically the whole purpose of the mitigation assistance is to improve the resiliency of your home or business, so that in the event of a future disaster, you're able to withstand the impacts of the storm.
Okay, well, I want to thank both of you for being with us. Unless there's something you feel like you need to emphasize at the end here, can you think of anything that we haven't talked about?
You can apply using the FEMA helpline at 800-621-3362, but it's also a great resource to have throughout the application process because you can call that number to speak to a FEMA specialist and ask questions about your application, receive clarification on letters or correspondence from FEMA, and even receive help with appeals. So it's a really nice number to keep handy.
I would also like to add that for small businesses, it's important that you work with your SBDC offices, the Small Business Development Center, because they help you repackage your applications so that when you do come to the SBA, you have all the documents that you need and it's easier to apply.
All right. Well, Kim Keblish with FEMA and Yabsira Adera with SBA. Thanks both for being with us on The Insider today. Appreciate it.
Thank you for having us.
We've been highlighting FEMA assistance following the tornadoes and severe weather in the spring of 2023. Again, that information is at www.disasterassistance.gov, or you can download the FEMA app. And the FEMA helpline is 800-621-3362. This podcast has originated from City Hall. Thanks for listening to The Insider on our multiple platforms. You can also watch The Insider right here on YouTube. Our producer is Michael Nevels. For more information on the City of Murfreesboro, visit murfreesborotn.gov. I'm Mike Browning. Thanks for joining us.